Never say it.
Well, as Yitzhak Mordechai pointed out, I cut down a tree for this, but my mom once described her feelings of dissatisfaction or unjustness that we typically say all these wonderful things about a person as we eulogize them, when they can no longer hear such words of praise, admiration, and appreciation. So with that, Mom, here you are. So ladies first, Mom. My mother has been the embodiment or definition of an entrepreneur decades before I'd ever heard of that term. She has always been a pioneer, forging her own path through trial and error, discovery, and always eventual mastery. Shortly after high school and early on into college, my mother made several separate but important decisions that couldn't have been easy, but decisions she knew nevertheless were the right ones for her in those moments. She decided to take on an entirely new religion and lifestyle, and that the rest of college would wait indefinitely. My mom inadvertently taught me the art and value of the side hustle. I was very young, but I can still remember living in our second floor apartment on Sacramento, just north of Devon, and watching my mother work hard to measure and pin dresses she was working on for friends and customers as a seamstress. She then also started a small business selling hats to the community with our friend Sherry Schneider. I remember the feeling of utter glee the day she acted as a substitute in my kindergarten class. Though I can't recall just how clingy I was all day, I also don't recall her ever doing that again. To our family, Mom has always been a master builder who had taught me the fundamentals of all things DIY, do it yourself, and most importantly, the mentality of never being too intimidated to at least learn and try fixing it yourself first. I remember one of her earlier projects having built a sitting bench in that very apartment on Sacramento that ran along the entire window wall, complete with storage inside for all the quilts she managed to find time to make. Those quilts were always in good company, lying alongside the other quilts made by her mother for us as well. I was amazed that anyone could have made such a perfect, functional, and beautiful piece of furniture for our home. And it was my mother who did it. That bench served many purposes, including acting as the platform for which we would proudly display our Hanukkah menorahs. I recall sitting there watching out the window for my brother Josh to return home from his day at Hillel Torah at the Green School. And I always also recalled the bench being the perfect hiding spot during any game of hide and seek, which at that age, by the way, you keep using the same hiding spot, not realizing that they catch on. I also recall the door slamming down on my head several times, which may be the answer to a few of your own very questions today. I remember feeling the excitement when my mom was hired as a receptionist for a small computer company in Skokie as their third employee in a tiny storefront building on Main Street, working for Irv Shapiro. I was too young then to really know anything about the job description, expectations for this role, or what my mom had in mind when she took the job, but I can tell you that her ambition, work ethic, and curiosity wouldn't be contained nor satiated with whatever it was she was told she was being hired for. Her curiosity got the best of her, and when curiosity, creativity, and ambition are paired with generously supportive leadership, one can only expect limitless potential. For the next 15 years, I can't recall seeing my mom sitting around in the evening, weekends, or whilst vacationing without some kind of technical and thick training manual in her hands. She was always reading, bookmarking, highlighting, taking notes, and practicing new technical computer skills. She rose from an entry-level gatekeeper position to upper management in a highly technical and competitive, fast-paced industry of computer science and consulting. I could never really understand anything about her job when she tried explaining it to me, but boy, was I impressed. The situations and stories about work she retold, the complex terminology she used, the many wires and blinking lights I witnessed in the server rooms, all those ones and zeros, oh my, very impressive. Don't get me started on a clean room. I don't know how much about her job. I didn't know much about her job then, and I didn't really have any sense of typical gender stereotypes or women's rights or feminism or any of that back then, but I sensed enough to know that what my mother had achieved and worked hard for was special and unusual. I was impressed and inspired by her fast-walking and fast-talking conversations down the office corridors that would have equally impressed Aaron Sorkin, rivaling any scene within the halls of the West Wing. I was impressed and inspired by her business attire, her move from a suburban storefront to a larger glass-clad Skokie office, to that downtown River North loft in those ride-up, antiquated and yet quaint open-gated elevators with the human operator, and eventually into the very large and very impressive Loop office, spanning multiple floors, so high you can see all the way down to the United Center. I was impressed and inspired by all the meetings she took. She must be an important and valuable asset to the future of this company and her coworkers. And I was equally impressed and inspired as she very slowly, it felt like forever, weathered the storm and eventually the fallout of the dot-com bubble burst, turning down offers to evacuate a sinking ship because as the captain, she had the moral and ethical standards to ensure everyone else got out safely as she turned off the lights herself. Later recognizing and accepting the magnitude of her sacrifice as the now out-of-work professional who, with so much incredible experience and talent, and yet no college degree, would be too expensive a hire in this economic recession. Mom did two things that I will forever be inspired by. She took a job far below her qualifications because helping to support the family and starting anywhere, doing anything was the right option. And two, she decided that knowledge and experience wasn't enough for her to ensure a brighter future and decided to pick up where she had left off so many years before to fulfill and earn her college degree, even if it meant years of night classes after working in an already long day at the office. And she did it. She graduated and achieved what I myself couldn't imagine having the courage or fortitude to do after years had passed. Mom spent the remaining years of her professional career at the Chicago Rabbinical Council, coming just a few blocks away, coming full circle. That's the flyover. You're too early. Oh, my timing is off. She had come full circle, combining the two subjects she had sought out to discover in life, Judaism and technology. As the IT manager for the CRC, she was able to bring her many years of experience managing projects and people in service of her community and without the daily commute downtown. She has always been an entrepreneur at heart and in mind, and I've always learned so much by her role modeling. Dad. Ever since I was little, I remember hearing about the many jobs my father had growing up. Assembly line building fans, camp counselor, youth groups, Hebrew school, leading Shabbat team meeting and youth director at Shul, student teaching on the south side, the west side, and jewelry bagman. He majored in biology, eventually getting his master's in education before becoming a teacher. And he's always been a teacher at heart in how he communicates and interacts with people. After doing his time, He transitioned into what was to become his eventual career within insurance, beginning as a sales rep. I remember most evenings, my father returning home late after making his house calls with clients, and the happy feelings of seeing him walk through the door after his long day of hard work. If you know him at all, you'll know he is the salesman's salesman. Much to the dismay of many friends of mine, being in the hot seat of a cross-examination or interrogation, as we fondly referred to them, using all his sales tactics and strategies to learn as much personal information and details about a guest at our Shabbat table that would make even the most talented of password hackers feel inferior. But he does this because he has a genuine curiosity and love for people. He wants to know them better, and in doing so makes everyone feel welcome, seen, and as if they are the most important person in the room. My father would instill in us a life lesson at an early age, describing that the best way to teach an important lesson to another person is through self-discovery. Help them arrive at the conclusion themselves, and the message will be all the more powerful. He would demonstrate his principles and strategies firsthand. You may recall, for many years, my father would always have a tiny green dot sticker on the crystal face of his very nice gold watch. "Dad, what's that green dot for?" I'd ask him. And in true Sherwin form, to a 10-year-old nonetheless, his response would be, "Do you have life insurance?" He didn't bother explaining why. He simply jumped directly into demonstrating the purpose of the dot, which we came to one day, finally, understand that it was a conversation starter, a reminder, and a means to do his job well. In the words of Alec Baldwin's character Blake in the 1992 film Glengarry Glen Ross, ABC, always be closing. Or him always needing to deliver a punchline regardless of the inconvenience of a given moment. Like while sitting in the chair at the dentist's office, with one hand in his mouth, holding an instrument, the doctor, trying to make small talk, as they tend to do, asks what line of work my father's in, and my father mumbles back, "Insurance." The doctor asks, "Do you sell?" My father could easily nod his head, but instead responds, "Do you buy?" Always be closing. Working for Metropolitan and MetLife and then New England Life Insurance, my father eventually transitioned from outside sales to a more traditional inside role working as a broker. During this time, I remember feeling proud of my father, and without any real knowledge of the real world, or really anything about career path, this seemed like a big step for someone. And even as a child, I remember rightfully assuming he must be doing really good work to get this job. My assumptions were only further confirmed when, from my perspective, which is good enough for me, it seemed he was poached once, maybe twice, to do this work for other companies who wanted, nay, needed him to help their business grow. He was a brokerage manager, and it didn't take a genius to know that my father must be really good at his job if he was a manager. My father has been considered the foremost expert in the field of life, short-term and long-term disability insurance in the region and perhaps the nation. To be honest, it doesn't really matter what the official ranking was within the Insurance Hall of Fame. He is the best in my record book. Being the best at anything, while flattering, does not always define a person. I know this because my father has always taken more pride and pleasure celebrating his family than he ever did in displaying professional achievement awards. I saw this every time I walked into his office for an unexpected visit. He always stopped what he was doing to parade me around his office, reintroducing me to every single person there, usually with a brief bio and an update of what I was currently involved in. And when I'd eventually make my way into his private office, there up on the top shelf, above all the awards and certificates and achievements, was his family photos proudly displayed as his most prized of all trophies. My parents both taught us and instilled in their children values of work ethic, importance of volunteering for community, how to be a Kiddush Lashem and an Or Lagoyim. I owe so much of who I am, the person I continue striving to be, because of what I saw and learned from my parents as they led by example, whether they realized I was watching or not. I work so hard today because I have a lot to live up to in the footsteps of their kindness, leadership, and service to their family. We love you and are very proud of everything you have both respectively and collectively accomplished over the years. Mazel tov and congratulations.
Thank you, Noah.
I wrote that for him.